today's edition of The Transition Guy. Now, joining me today is Robert Glazer. He's an author and keynote speaker. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And you've got a new book.
Got a new book.
So, the book, what was your motivation around the book?
The book just kind of happened out of a couple of different things. It started with this email called Friday Forward that I started years ago to my team, which people started to share and ended up going around the world and reaching 100,000 people. Sort of a process that I went through, and also at our company, we really focused on building capacity in people. And so I actually went to write a compilation book, and I talked to some agents and some other people, and everyone said, yeah, no one likes compilation books, no one will buy it. I was like, I have all these great stories that I've every week, and people haven't read them. And I met an agent, and he said, look, I think there's a story that you have here. And so this book, this fairly small book, was 3 years and 3 rewrites, but eventually it sort of led me to the book I needed to write, and I think that I was meant to write, but it was definitely a process. It was this was not the original idea.
No, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So, I mean, people are probably going to be curious about the whole Friday thing.
Yeah.
Friday Forward. What was that all about?
It was about me improving my morning and reading something positive and learning from a lot of morning routines that was a good thing to do, but not liking the stuff that I was given. You know, the kind of chicken soup for the soul, or the sort of quote like "you can do it." Like that just didn't do it for me. So I had some stories and some quotes and some stuff I collected. So I decided to pull those together, and I'd send everyone off the company on Fridays like with a kind of interesting note that was, I joke around, and someone said that Friday Forward is a little like spicy chicken soup for the soul. So while it's inspirational and motivational, it also tries to be a little bit of a gut punch at times to like get people to want to do better and be better. And that's what I enjoyed writing, and it seemed to make an impact, and it just went in a nice virtuous circle.
Any particular reason for Friday?
I thought, yes and no. I actually, because it was meant to sort of kick off the weekend on a good note. Right. Like, I'm not sure people are ready for inspiration on Mondays. There's actually a guy who wrote a book from the same publisher I didn't know about called The Monday Moment or something like that. So it's funny.
So your book.
Yeah.
What's it about?
It's about the notion of capacity building, which I think is the fundamental and the 4 elements of capacity building, which I label as spiritual, intellectual, physical, and emotional. And I think that's just the framework of all self-improvement that I've seen, and really high achievers across every aspect of life. I mean, I've met a lot of these people in leadership or otherwise. It was sort of the same patterns I kept seeing, like, this is what they're good at, this is what they work on, this is what they're honed in on. And I think it's a really, like, we all want to get better, but I like frameworks, and to me it's an accessible framework on like where you're probably a little deficient and how you can kind of get better holistically. And I think we look around us and we look at other people and we think like, that person's doing better than me or has some advantage or otherwise. And as I say in the book, like, I think that person has elevated themselves to the best version of themselves. You have all the same tools available to you. It's just more convenient and easier to believe that they have some advantage.
And I suppose a lot of people aren't yet ready to take that step for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Some people are just not ready to drink the water.
I think there's 2 groups. I think there's the want to but don't know where to start or how, and then there's the don't want to try because it's easier to make excuses and play the victim. And it's just a matter of when you're really willing to stop doing that and believe that you control what you do.
And I totally agree with you. And actually, in the industrial age, you could get away with that thinking. Yeah. But today you cannot get away with that thinking. How did you overcome people that were resistant to this?
I had to do it. You know, I've tried to lead by example. I mean, Friday Forward in itself is a whole exercise in all 4 of these things now, 200, episodes over 4 years. So I have tried to model this. You know, when I talk about physical capacity and challenging yourself, like into the company each year, like I pick some physical thing I haven't done before, and I share that is my goal. And I report back. 2 years ago was a Olympic triathlon. Last year it was we bike biked from as a team from London to Paris in 24 hours. Like, I mean, I just think you have to do this stuff. Like, you can't talk about it.
And within your business, has that been embraced, do you think, by a lot of other people?
Yeah, I think I see other people wanting to, seeing the impact it has on me, them wanting to step up and do that. I'm trying to do it and encourage them to do it at the same time. I think you can't do one without the other.
Fantastic. And what advice would you give people listening in today that really want to make the change but don't know how to get going? Because I know there's so many people that the first step is the most important step.
Yeah, and I think, look, this is a long game. So, I have the framework, I have the steps in this book. It goes in a specific order. I think if you commit to do this, the principles in this book have existed in hundreds of ways for hundreds of years. I pulled it in a way that really, again, I think made it accessible to me and to those others that I work with and is kind of in my community. But it's not, you got to do the work. This is not a shortcut, it's not a hack. But if you do these things every day, it won't happen overnight, but you will fundamentally see improvement. I think these are like absolute principles that exist, but it's not a hack. It's not this is just about doing the work, but giving you a clear roadmap that says, look, here's how I figure out what I want. Here's how I hone in on my focus and my discipline. Here's how I make sure that like my physical capacity is like up to the task, and then how do I improve my relationships and how I interact with external things and how I respond. And if you get better at all those things, there's no way that you will not elevate.
And to be honest, there's times probably where you are not overly in the mood. Yeah. You've got to have the disciplines and habits in place to make stuff happen.
It goes to the beginning. I mean, this is under a whole variety of things. There's been a big why movement. I think you see more talk about core values. I mean, you have to figure out what matters most to you, right? Absolutely. We know it. I would say it's like driving a car and hitting the wall. And when you hit the wall, but it'd be nice if someone would paint the lanes on the roads. You don't have to hit the wall. So when you're really clear on your core values, what you want most, whatever, then the other stuff comes into line. Now you get better and more focused, and you say no to the other things. Now you care about your health and these things because it really helps you do this, and you start connecting with the people who can help you with what you want. You start getting rid of the people. So it falls in line, but it's very hard to do it. Like the flip side, I always say, like if your spiritual capacity is low, but you're good on all the other stuff, you may be really, really externally successful at something that provides no joy for you or makes you happy in any way. It's just you've done what you think society wanted you to do.
Now, what you're saying is absolutely correct. I think the big challenge is people, unfortunately, have been brought up or brainwashed in such a way. Yeah. They do not believe that actually they can take control of their life. Yeah. And
it's much easier to believe that. Yeah.
And that's the resistance I tend to find, is that people find it too easy to sort of blame their circumstance, and they don't believe that they've got the capacity to actually change as a human being and have what they want. And that's going to be the big challenge. And I don't think people have got much of a choice, because at the end of the day, the way that the things are moving,
you got one life. Like, what do you want to do with it?
Yeah, and we can do whatever we want. Yeah. It's like I hear people bitching about their job, I hate my job, etc. But they've got the capacity to change that.
Well, the phrase that I use with my kids, because I think it covers both elements of not being too sort of pie in the sky and also being realistic, is you can do anything you desire if you are willing to do what's required. And I actually got that partially from a story that John DeJulius, who's speaking, told years ago about his son, and a thing where he was like, look, you can win this tournament, but like, here's what you have to do, dude. Like, I believe in you, but 8 hours a day for a year before we come back. And he's like, my kid, did it. So there's real work to be done. So I think a lot of people, as you were saying, like, oh, well, I can't, I'm not saying there's not work to be done, but if you are clear about what you want and you're willing to do the work and you really want to do in that direction, like, stop making excuses.